anyone who oh, there's Josh. There he is. For you to look back at another time to relive these happy moments, um, and check on anything that might have flown by during the session. And well, can I just check of you folks, which of you have had a look at, have used the videos that I've posted of the previous sessions? Which of you have sort of looked through those? Cool. Okay, cool. Yeah, great. All right, three is pretty good. Three is pretty good for this sort of thing. That's you
I
taking
haven't
time.
needed to because I've written everything down.
Whatever works, dude. Whatever works. Yeah. Um, Justin, can I just ask you actually, because you will have watched a session then that you weren't there for.
One
So
that I missed. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. How was it watching that?
that was really good. Got a few good tips as soon as I watched it. I just went to some of my projects and started implementing some of the techniques you were talking about, particularly that putting the lower frequencies into mono on bass
Ah, okay,
sections, and then using some of the harmonics, like keeping those stereo and whatnot.
okay. Yeah, yeah. That's what we
So
did. Awesome.
yeah.
Okay, cool. So, thank you for joining. Thank you for spending some of your evening with me, with each other. Um, so we've got until 9 o'clock to talk about vocal production. Is what you're all here for, I think, ostensibly. Um, so yeah, we're gonna go. I've had some requests to go in a little bit deeper with just getting the basic sound of our dry sound sort of sorted out. I've had a request to go to sort of look a little bit more detail about how to what we're listening out for and how we can really sort of nail the blend of a vocal. So I'd really like to do that to sort of start things off. It's kind of as a continuation to what we did last time. This is, as I said in the email, what to expect. So, and of course, the vocal is central to any song. It's got to be right. And no matter how many effects we end up putting on the vocal, the central dry sound has got to be well balanced. It's got to be present. It all hangs on that. Once we've got that sorted out, then we can start to add the fairy dust and get some really exciting and fun soundscapes. So, yeah, and an hour and a half is not long to be going into this sort of thing. So, we ended up sort of rushing through a couple of things last time, and I would like to address that. So, can I ask before we go any further, who has been trying some of these techniques out this week? Okay, all right, Danette. So, have you been trying them in the song that you sent over for us to look at today?
Yeah, I have. I don't have a multi-band compressor I like using yet,
Okay.
so that's been a bit of a roadblock. I don't know how well my mic's picking up.
Okay. Your mic is picking up beautifully.
Awesome.
Sound great.
But yeah, I'm trying my best.
Great. Okay. So yeah, multi-band compressors they can really unlock a high quality sound and a consistent sound. And yeah, I don't much like the one in Logic. There's a Waves one C4 that I quite enjoy using. Um, and there are some other tools. I've got a couple of free ones that I'm going to share with you today, which will give you some roads into this. Where did you feel? I mean, you've brought this song for us to have a look at today. Were there some points where you were not sort of quite able to reach the point that you wanted to with this track?
Yeah, I am. It's hard. I have been struggling to get like the nasality to sit right,
Okay.
and then balancing the solo voice with backing vocals and having the leveling right throughout the whole track
Hmm.
has been difficult.
Okay. All right. Great. I'm going to make a note of that because leveling is a great thing to talk about. Um, and there are some neat tricks for that I can share with you today. Okay. So yeah, we're gonna sort of start with that, and hopefully maybe half an hour of looking into just sort of like really nailing the raw vocal sound of your track here. If that's would you be grateful to look into this in a bit more detail to sort of like look at
Yeah,
some trouble areas?
that'd be very useful. Yeah.
Okay, all right. And just before we listen, kind of just open this out to everyone else. What other problems are you having just sort of getting the basic sound together for your sound, for your vocal sound? Are there um, issues with compression? Are there issues with the tone? Are you trying to work out what you need to be listening out for? What's going on with that? Great, Miles.
Mike. I've been working on a track.
Miles, you're really super quiet, pal.
Am I? Oh, don't. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go to Phoenix, okay? And could you change your audio settings while I do that so we can hear you? Because it's really important that we do. We all want to hear everything you say, okay? So I'll come back to you in a minute, all right? Phoenix, yeah.
So yeah, to have a vocal sit at a consistent presence, right? I think this can be achieved with just very thorough gain automation, right? But I feel like it's a thing that works better if you have like a compressor setting and maybe even automating the compressor in a way that the vocals kind of blend through more quieter passages, but also louder passages. I don't know.
Okay. Consistent presence. Phoenix, that is, I couldn't have asked for someone to say something more pertinent to what we're going to look at with this because, yeah, obviously, like, do we all sort of understand that a compressor is going to level out the level of a sound volume-wise? We're all sort of happy with that concept. Is anyone sort of new to this idea? Fine. Okay. So the way we set up a compressor, it's going to make volume consistent, but what we put into that compressor is going to determine what it makes consistent exactly. Okay. So if we feed a compressor with a thing, with a sound that has prominent aspects which are not the thing we want to hear, it's going to let those dominate. It's going to focus on those, and the clarity is going to suffer. The clarity, the sort of presence of the vocal is going to be controlled by something else. So we're going to have a look at that shortly. Miles, have you had any progress with your audio?
So I'm going to be Miles' spokesperson.
Oh, great. Okay.
They have said that they want it. They've been working on a track for 2 years, and their vocals sound too raw, like it sits awkwardly in the mix. They have
Okay.
added saturation and EQ'd, but it doesn't sound right.
Okay. Cool. Did I catch that you go by they these days, Miles? Yes.
They.
Okay. Cool. Right. Okay. Too raw. Want to get this properly cooked in with the mix. So maybe a sense that it's not sort of sitting on top of everything else. So it's blended in. It feels present up front, but not like glued on top kind of thing. Is that the kind of area we're looking at? Awesome. Okay, cool. And Danette, you were raising your hand on behalf of our friend here. Okay, fine. Cool. Anyone else just want to sort of bring something into this? Just while we have a moment. Okay, cool. All right, so I'm going to introduce you to Danette's track. It's lovely. It's absolutely lovely. I think we're going to be focusing just on this track during this session because if we take on too many things, then we'll just end up skimping in some way. So I'm going to share this track with you real quick. Okay. Can you see my Logic screen?
Yep.
All right. Okay. So I have here, then it's sent over the full mix of her track and the stems. What we have here, what I've got displayed here, is the instrumental track. We're not going to be looking at that. This is a session that's going to focus on vocals. There are some really interesting backing vocal layers happening in these sections here. Just zoom in so you can see them a bit better. Yeah. And she's also sent me the vocal completely unprocessed here, and here we have Danette's work. This is just with EQ and compression here, right? Is that right?
Yeah, that's it.
Wonderful. Okay. All right. Okay. So let's just have a listen to the full track, just like as I first heard it. This is the original track. I think you're going to really enjoy this. It's beautiful. Here we go. You'll hear that okay? So cool, right? So yeah, just what do you make of that? What are you noticing in there, particularly regarding the vocal mix? But it's all good. Hey, Josh.
Hi, Nick. Hi, Danette. Yeah, that was really cool. The main thing that I was noticing about the vocals is they sound like there's almost some sort of ducking effect going on, and I wasn't sure if that was like that could be a creative choice or it could be a maybe a compressor that's got too slow a release that's just suffering as a result of like a big transient early on.
Danette.
Yeah, the vocals are sidechained to the kick, maybe too harshly.
Okay. All right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a very prominent side-chained compression effect. Yeah. So just so we can reproduce this, I've asked Danette to send over the kick that is acting as the sort of the side chain trigger as well to work with. But you're quite right. How did you feel about the side chain, Josh?
I think there were parts where I liked it and it makes sense, but maybe needed to be more subtle. And there were parts when I felt it was distracting.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Anyone else sort of agree with that?
Yeah.
We do. Okay, some of us do. Okay, yeah. So I really enjoy the fact that you've put this this very characterful effect on here. It's this is a sort of creative effect and a creative decision. Um, the plan for today, as I think I described, is that we're going to be looking at sort of like treatments for vocals, kind of like in sort of not so much in the creative realm as such, but sort of getting things to blend and sound really like classy and expensive and professional. Okay. Just while I'm on the subject, would you be interested in a further session we do where we go right in on creative effects on really wacky stuff? Would that be interesting to you? Yes, 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 yes. Okay, cool.
Definitely, yeah.
All right, cool. All right, super. All right. So just to hit that on the head, we're going to deal with that another time. Okay. So this is why I've asked for Danette to give us this vocal without that effect on. Okay. All right. So cool. We can look at it. I like the creative decision. What else did we notice about the vocal? Anything? Hey, Phoenix.
I think what Danette already said, that they're a little nasally. I think this is something that would be nice to control a little bit to make it blend a little more, have it a little more sparkle instead of the high mids.
Okay. All right. Cool. Great. Did anyone else pick up on that? Okay. Cool. All right. So yeah, I'm hearing this too. It's definitely worth looking at. So I'm going to bring this back to the to sharing the session now. So here we are. So I have the processed version of the vocal here and the raw version of the vocal here. Now, if I may, well, let's start with the raw vocal, just so we can sort of go through this process ourselves all together once, and sort of think about how we would approach processing this and EQing and compressing it, just so we can talk about this. So let's listen to the raw vocal. I'll bring up the level so it's nice and easy to hear, but have a listen to the tone of this and just give you some ideas as to what sort of frequency areas you think we might need to work with to sort of get the best out of this vocal sound. And I'll give you one clue. It's a perfectly well recorded vocal. The recording is fine. But what are you thinking straight away when you hear this as to how you would bring some more quality and class out of the sound?
I get nervous if you find yourself spilling over my head. It feels so.
So just looking at that section there, what occurs to you? What changes do you want to make immediately? Just quick fire. Miles.
Is my mic working now?
Yeah, you sound great.
Perfect. Yes. I'm instantly thinking compression, like
Okay.
immediately, because it's jumping quite a lot.
Okay, awesome, great, cool. All right, anything else? Yeah, Josh.
I would say maybe like sort of agree with Miles, but before that maybe could do something that we talked briefly about last week in terms of gain matching different sections, because there's a falsetto bit that's significantly quieter and might have to overly compress to bring that out.
Awesome, great. Okay, yes, this is something we touched on briefly last time around. It's possible to just isolate some of these sections where obviously this is a lot quieter than the later section. So we can take that and this, why not? Let's do it roughly right now. And we can use the gain setting up here just to bring that up to a sort of more similar kind of level to the rest of it. And this just means that the compressor isn't having to work with such a wide range of levels. So that just makes it straight away a little bit more manageable. Okay, cool. All right. All right. And what else in terms of like, is there anything that's shouting out at you about frequencies? Is it too bright? Is it too dark? Phoenix.
So I think there can be a little like a high shelf in the high ends to get a little bit more of that sparkle.
Okay.
I would also try to reduce. I think it's around like 1 to 2.5K. I think there's kind of like a range that is a little over present that I would reduce.
Okay. Is this the nasality that you're hearing?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. All right. Cool.
I'm not sure about the frequency range, though. I would have to really try where I hear it.
Yes, well, I mean you've been quite specific, and I think you're probably about right. You've clearly used an EQ before, so yeah. All right, so I the biggest problem right now is the level is jumping around. So we're going to pop a compressor on here. I'm going to try and use free plugins for the most of this session, just so if anyone is working in other platforms, you can use them yourself. There's a company called Analog Obsession, which make sort of replicas of all kinds of analog gear, and they've got a Patreon, so you can give them some love. But essentially, they've got a whole bunch of really lovely emulations of classic gear. So this is like a kind of emulation of the 1176 compressor, which is very fast and punchy kind of sound, but warm as well. Okay, so hey, Miles.
Is this one that you personally use, Nick?
Right, okay. I don't personally use this one on mixes, but I use the same type of compressor as this. I use versions of this that I've paid for, honestly, but it does the same thing.
I was just wondering.
I absolutely would use this on a mix. It's just I have about 700 to choose from, and the one I like is purple. Right. So yeah, so just brushing up on what we were talking about like last time around. To set the compressor up, the rule of thumb that we can use is just choose a high ratio, so it's really clear when it's acting, and then we just adjust the input level on this one to bring it up to meet the threshold. And what we're looking for is for it to be doing a little bit of work on the quietest bits that we do want to hear. Okay, so just on the very quietest sections, like here, we do want this needle to be moving. We do want a tiny bit of reduction, and that means that anything that's louder than that is going to be reduced a lot more and brought down to that kind of level. So I'll just sort of demonstrate this right now. I'll just bring the input down. Don't worry too much about the other controls at the moment. Just a high ratio is fine. Hey Toby, thanks for joining us.
Hiya.
Hey, okay, so are you with me, you folks, on how I've set the threshold there, where I've sort of found where it's biting. Everything that we want to hear is being compressed at least a little bit, and the louder bits a lot. Are we happy with this idea? Okay, all right. As a rule of thumb, that is always going to work, and it then becomes very simple to sort of set these things up. And then, if you want it to be very flattened out, you can use a higher ratio, and if you wanted to breathe a little bit more, you can use a low ratio. I just started putting together a little sort of cheat sheet for this sort of thing. Will this be of interest to you to have like a Nick's like golden rules of mixing a vocal? Would you like that? All right, okay, all right. I didn't have time to finish it today, but it's in the works. All right, so that's your basic compression. Let's listen to what this is doing to the sound now. So just listen to what it is making the level more consistent. I'm going to keep the ratio quite high so it's quite obvious, but just like at what points do you feel like it's biting. Let's just think about what sort of shapes of the words and what sorts of sounds are causing the level to come down. Just have a listen to this. So let's just play it at the start again, just once more, this section here. So I'm noticing something a bit strange about the way it's responding there, and maybe that's not entirely helpful. I'm getting a sense for that. That's okay, this is a subtle one. So, okay. An idea that I really wanted to share with you about how we set up compressors and EQs is the order that we put things in and what exactly we want to be putting into the compressor to get it to do the thing that we really want it to do. A compressor wants to level out volume, and anything that's loud, it will bring it down above a certain point. Now, Felix was talking about consistent clarity of the voice. Now, if we feed a compressor, so I'm just putting an EQ before the compressor here, with something that has lots of bass in it, lots of low frequencies in it, it's going to respond to those frequencies and it's going to bring down the brighter stuff, the clarity of the sound. I'll just let this play so you can hear what I'm talking about here. So with a setup like this, the compressor is responding to a lot of low frequencies here, and the high frequencies are suffering. In fact, a good demonstration. I'm going to show you this properly. This is quite an important point. I'm going to make two of these tracks, exactly the same, but one of them I'm going to boost the low frequencies and then cut them after the compressor by the same amount. And the other one, the opposite. So this is what happens when you feed. Oh. So on this one, we're going to feed the compressor with the bassy signal and then reduce the bass afterwards. And on this one, we're going to feed the compressor with a bright signal and then boost the bass afterwards. Are you with me? Are you kind of with me? Okay, so the compressor is going to respond to different parts of the sound now, and I want you to listen to the difference here. So let's listen to the one where we're boosting the bass going into it first. And now we're going to listen to the one where we're cutting the low frequencies and then boosting them afterwards to see how that feels. Here we go. So now that's feeding it a bright signal, and this is feeding it a dark signal again. So which do you prefer of these two? Which do you prefer?
Can you go back one more time?
Yeah. Okay, so this is feeding it a bassy signal and then cutting the bass afterwards.
I'm feeling so refreshed. I'm feeling so refreshed.
And this is feeding it a bright signal and then boosting the bass afterwards.
I'm feeling so refreshed. I'm feeling so refreshed.
What are we saying? Phoenix.
Yeah, it's really a night and day difference. The second one sounds so much more bright and sparkly. It's crazy.
Okay, yeah. So are we all hearing something along those lines? There's a more consistent. This is this consistent clarity that I was talking about. Like a compressor wants to even things out, but if you give it lots of the things that you don't really want to end up with to start with, it's going to be controlled by those things and it's going to be dominated by those. Those high mid-range frequencies are where the clarity of a vocal live. That's where the presence comes through, and that is what we ideally want to have sort of sat on top of the mix to make all the lyrics come through clearly. Okay, this isn't making it like super bright. It's just making sure that the bright stuff is at the front all the time. Josh.
I can definitely hear that. I'm a little confused as to the why in that a compressor is lowering the level of the loud stuff so that when you then like push the gain of everything up, the quiet stuff is getting louder. So in that first example where you're making the lower end louder into the compressor, why is that not the stuff that's being gain reduced more than the high frequency?
It would feel like putting a bassy signal into a compressor, the compressor is going to reduce the bass more, right?
Yeah.
So the thing is, at that moment, the bassy stuff and the bright stuff are both going through it at the same time. So if it's responding to this big lump of bass, it's going to pull down the brighter frequencies as well.
Okay.
So the low stuff is going to be telling the compressor what to do more so, but it's going to be doing that to the whole thing, including the clarity.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So just as a kind of, this is a step that I missed last time around, but I just realized it's really important. A lot of the time you don't need to EQ your vocal before it gets to the compressor, but if you feed a compressor nonsense, it will give you evened out nonsense. Okay. So so the first step for me is like just to make sure that the vocal is well balanced and I'm kind of getting a good proportion of all the things I want. And in terms of what that is, hey Phoenix.
Just to be sure, this can also mean just doing a low cut on the vocals with stuff that is not in the recording anyways, right? Like just to avoid that it would trigger the compressor.
Absolutely, yes. So there can be rumble, there can be plosives in the vocal, anything that's below the lowest fundamental frequency that you hear in the voice, you can get rid of that, and that's good to get rid of at the start as well, because those big waves can you might not even hear them. But the compressor will respond to them. So it's a good idea to put those back there. Okay, so all right, okay, all right. So now just we're going to look now at the nasality that we were talking about. So I'm going to leave this compressor as it is. It's like there's more work that you can do with it, but we've got a kind of a compressed tone where the brightness is being kept consistent because of the way these are set up. And now Phoenix was talking about this stuff in the sort of high mid-range, in this kind of like 1.5 to 2,000 hertz range. This part of the spectrum with vocals, it can be an absolute nightmare. It can be a real tricky area because there's bright stuff in there, which you need, but then on certain vowels, on certain notes, it can just become too much. So let's just hear what that sounds like in this case. So this area here is your sort of like nasty zone around here. There is after doing this for some time, you'll start to hear exactly where they are. But these stock plugins, they have the analyzer on there to show you where the frequencies are. And if you just watch this screen here, you can kind of see where the problems are to some extent.
I get nervous if you find yourself spilling over my head.
It's really sort of bright stuff sort of hanging out around here on those particular notes. So a wonderful technique for sort of dealing with problem frequencies and EQing in general is what I call the seek and destroy method. Okay, so this is where it's much easier to hear the frequencies that might be causing problems if you accentuate them. And then once you've found the ones that are irritating you the most, let's lose them, okay? You can see them sometimes, but hearing them, to be sure, is essential. If I just bring up this EQ here quite narrow and sweep it around, we'll find some bits of the sound that we like less.
I get nervous if you find yourself spilling over my head. I get nervous if you find yourself spilling over my head. I get nervous if you find yourself spilling over my head.
All these ranges, they have different sort of qualities. But I mean, to get a lovely vocal sound, you can do a lot worse than just to sort of sweep around, find the things that annoy you the most and turn them down a bit. And if you found some things that you liked a lot, then you can keep them up. This is a pretty simple kind of principle, but just sweeping around and finding them like that, just to familiarize yourself with what all these different frequencies sound like and what they're doing, is going to help a lot. So I'm just going to do this again, and can you maybe make a note of any kind of frequency numbers that that contain stuff that you don't like in here? Let's just see if this works.
I get nervous if you find yourself spilling over my head. I get nervous if you find yourself spilling over my head. I get nervous if you find your
Has anyone got any opinions about this?
1.4 and 1.8 felt
All right.
kind of rough to me.
Okay, 1.4 and 1.8. Let's have a look at 1.4. Let's just boost that there.
I get nervous if you find yourself.
Yeah, so occasionally that's really sort of poking through quite a lot. Obviously, like, this is accentuating it, but we have the option now to remove some of that stuff. If we've identified there a quality that we don't like in this vocal, now we know where it is, and now we know we can deal with it. Okay.
I get nervous if you find yourself spilling over my head. I get nervous.
So it's the seek,
I get nervous.
something you don't like, and destroy it by reducing the gain.
I get nervous if you find yourself.
Yeah, Mars.
Sorry, my only issue with like this method is that what I'm actually listening out for, because if you accentuate anything, it's gonna sound bad.
Yeah.
So I don't know, what am I specifically actually like listening to?
I love that. Fantastic. That's a great question, because like if you boost any of these frequencies enough, they're going to sound awful. Yeah. So that's absolutely fair. Okay, so this is where a bit of practice has to come in. Okay, so once you've done this, once you've swept through all these frequencies and you're aware of how they are contributing to the sound, you can hear the qualities. You can hear some of them sound brittle, some of them sound hard, some of them sound sparkly, some of them sound muddy, whatever you want to call them. Once you've swept around, you can it's going to become much easier to identify them when you just hear that vocal, because they're all in there. All those frequencies are still in there. So if we just listen to it with this accentuated for a second.
I'll get nervous if you find yours.
And we take it off now, we know what that range of frequencies sounds like. So if at some point we hear that it's pissing us off, then we know where to go. Okay, so this can be this does take practice. It does take practice. There's no like one way, and there's no one voice, and there's no one mic that is going to respond in the same way every time. So it does take sort of searching through, learning what these things sound like, familiarizing yourself with these different frequencies, and then learning how to deal with them. Okay. So yeah, that's like, sometimes it's clearer. This is a nicely recorded vocal. Okay. All right. So anyway, folks, there are a couple of things that I wanted to look at with regards to just sort of polishing things off with getting your vocal sound together. There is obviously more we could go into with this, but I really want to get onto some of the sort of the fairy dust treatments that you have been promised. Okay, so are we happy to move on to that? Are there any sort of like, but if I could just ask this one question, then I'd be really happy. You know, if there's that's the voice I use to talk to my dog, by the way. I'm sorry. Yeah. Right. Okay. Okay.
Have you got any? Sorry, I've
Yeah.
got my hand up. Have you got any good free opto compressors? Have you got with the UAD 1176 that came out last week? It's obviously a great one for the fast acting stuff.
Okay, there is Analog Obsession again has an amazing array of opto compressors. So they have a model of a LA2A which you can enjoy. Okay, I'm going to put that in the chat.
Thanks.
Okay. Oh, I'm just looking at the chat now, and I see that Michael is feeling very positively about things, generally speaking. That's good. Okay, so that's a free, like, and this will take you to the Analog Obsession page, and they've got a whole bunch of goodies which emulate, I don't know how accurately, but certainly in a pleasing way, a load of vintage gear. So this is like Merry Christmas time. It really is. Okay. All right. So before we move on to like part 2 of this session, where we get onto fairy dust, I just want to take a little detour. I want to know why you came to this session. I want to know why it was important that you came along tonight. Anyone, like, what is important about
I
it?
really want to make this song sound good.
Okay, great.
I've been throwing myself at it for a while, and I still don't like it. So it would be cool if I figured that out.
Well, I can like it for you, Danette. But,
Thank you.
That's great. Okay, so I'm going to go another layer of the onion deeper, Danette. Why do you want this song to sound good?
Damn, that is a little deeper. I will not release it until I'm proud of it, and I want to release it so I can stop thinking about it.
Wonderful. Okay. So there's things about this, the way it sounds, that are stopping you at the moment from wanting to release it. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. And why do you want to release it?
Might as well.
Why would we want to release a piece of music? Anyone? I don't know if you've got it, then that's
Not on me.
I'm just curious. Why are we doing this? Hey, Phoenix.
I think Michael just said something, right? I read it from the chat. That's something because
Michael, so it's inspiring to know that my own ideas can sound good enough to impress me, and inhibiting not to be able to access that. If they can't impress me, I'm not inspired to continue. Okay, all right. So being able to make your music sound the way you want allows you to carry on making it. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, and I think it's also like we want to spread a story, right? Like we want to tell a story and we want to share that and to create a context in which that story can most effectively be communicated to the listener. And I think the way it sounds is a really big part of this, right? And especially the way a vocal sounds really determines to some extent if people can connect with it, with the essence, with the soul of the song, or not.
So we are doing this so we can communicate emotions and ideas, I guess. I just wanted to sort of come back to that because, like, we can end up doing a lot of knob twiddling, but I just like to sort of come back to sort of the big why of that, you know, is because of emotion, is but because of connection, and it's because of our careers potentially. Brooke.
Oh, I was just going to say, there's always more I can learn, you know.
Well, yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, I'm not going to go into the why is that important because I think we'd end up in the same place. You know, it's like there's a bigger reason to do all this stuff. I just wanted to sort of connect with that for a moment. And my other tiny aside, because I really don't want to squeeze this stuff in at the end of the session. I've been thinking about this a lot, about this little community that we have here and what's possible with it. I know I'm only scratching the surface. I'm being quite sort of haphazard about it all, but I really believe that there's something great that we can all be part of in this. We can all sort of learn something great together and support each other with it. And I don't know, from the very first session that we did, it was great seeing you all in the same place at the same time, but I thought, what the hell would happen if you could actually just talk to each other, if you could be in a space together and commune and share, and like if there's mixing ideas that you have, or if there's tracks you want some mixed feedback on. So I've been thinking about what it would look like to put together a little space for us all to be and do that. Is that something that interests you?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I thought so. And I've been thinking about where to put it. And I thought about Facebook, and I thought, well, if my auntie wants to be involved in this, then Facebook's got me covered. Definitely. And I thought about Discord. Who's on Discord out there? Okay, half, more than half. Okay, all right. Well, this is a useful thing. Monica, are you on Discord?
I think I have a profile there, but I've never used it.
Okay,
Just
cool.
to set up the profile, yes.
All right,
I
cool.
have too many places to go for my stuff.
Oh, tell me about it. Tell me about it. That is the big problem of all this, just too much bloody internet. So I was thinking about maybe setting up like a WhatsApp community, because like it would be really easy for us to access. And like, and I think there's a communities kind of section of this that's quite new. I haven't really explored it yet, but just to sort of have somewhere that we can share about what we're doing, ask each other for help, maybe ask each other to sort of sing and play on our stuff, you know, because there's like you guys are so talented. You're amazingly talented, and you could be doing a lot with each other. So if I was to set up like a little WhatsApp community, who here would be like enthusiastic to become a part of that and sort of see where this could grow? Okay, all right. I was wondering. I was for some reason I was looking at Josh and I saw him not moving, and then I saw the hearts kind of rising from his posterior, like a kind of like he just let off the most glorious like thing in his room. Yeah.
I didn't quite know how that button was going to work, but
No. It delighted me more.
there's a send with effect bit. Okay, there we go.
Splendid.
You can do all sorts. There we go.
Oh my God, it's farting rockets now. Talented guy, you see? You want to know, Josh? All right, cool. So I'm going to do that. and I don't know how to do this. I don't know how this works, but I just believe that something really cool can happen here. So I don't know if I might be asking for your numbers or something, so I can dump you all on that or something. Anyway, I'll email you about it, and also the email's a drag, I know. Okay, right. Pro vocal treatments. Pro vocal treatments. This is what you came for. We're not talking about flanges today. We're not talking about bad distortion. We're not talking about filter sweeps. We're not going to go anywhere near a vocoder. No. I'm not today going to show you how to set up a feedback loop that goes through a pitch shifter. That's for next time. It's awesome. But no. We're going to look at some nice subtle techniques that are going to turn, well, as you were saying about it sounding too raw. You don't want your track to sound too raw. Who was saying that? I forget. Sorry. Hey, Miles. Okay. All right. All right. Truth is, a lot of lead vocals in pop music, rock music, dance music, hip hop certainly. It's not a hell of a lot of effects going on that you can really hear. You know, there's a lot of them are pretty dry, and there's good reason for that a lot of the time because it's a really like direct, immediate, intimate sound to that. It's really in your face. But somehow, if you just compress and EQ a vocal, yeah, you've got most of the way there, but it might still sound a little bit raw, a little bit weedy. And so, I want to share a few tricks that that I routinely use. Using some plugins that I do use and some that I have found recently that are free equivalents of things that I do use because I really want you to be able to look at this video, see exactly what I've done, and then do exactly that yourself, whether you have Logic or not. Okay. All right. Does this sound interesting? Do you want to do this? We're going to go in with Danette's wonderful song. All right. Can I just check one thing with you folks? Are you all sort of happy with the idea of send effects? Do you all know how they work? Yeah? Okay. Monica, are you familiar with using send effects?
I have heard about it. I'm really new to all this stuff and I haven't done a lot of vocal production.
Right.
But I find it really interesting to listen in and kind of taking notes and recognizing things I've heard before. So I have something to try out in Logic later.
Fantastic. Great.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
All right.
I don't mean to be all quiet, but yeah, I'm with you.
Great. Cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so obviously there's more work we can do to get this raw vocal sounding fantastic. It's sounding pretty good though, I think. We can definitely work with it. Let's just remind ourselves what we have, and now I'm going to show you. I'm going to give you a bunch of send effects that can be really useful for this specific purpose. Okay, I'm going to set up like I don't know 5, 6 separate sends that I can just feed this vocal to give a little bit of one flavor or another that can help to blend it in. All of these, they have different applications. They feel different. They will support different emotions. They'll support different genres. They'll support different voices. And really, like, there's no one right way to use them. I just want to sort of open your ears to some possible things that maybe you might be too subtle to even recognize and say, oh, how do I get that effect? You can't even hear the effect, but it's there. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to go in, and I'm just going to start doing stuff, folks. And if you want to talk to me, then I think at this point, just talk to me. There we go. All right, so Logic. There we go. Here's our vocal, our instrumental. Okay, so just first of all, are we all happy that the vocal is kind of fairly well balanced? It's nicely sort of up front. It's sounding quite, nothing's terribly wrong with it. So we're just going to go in with the send effects and the fairy dust and the thing that you came here for. Okay, so send. Here we go. I'm going to take send to bus 1 and bus 2 and bus 3 and bus 4 and bus 5 and bus 6. That'll do for now. So yeah, that's created all these auxiliary channels here. Okay, and you see the inputs: bus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now this is mostly for Monica's benefit. Now, if I've played the song and I turn any of these controls up here, it's going to send, hence the name, that much of the signal to each of these. So if I turn up bus 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now we can just throw a little bit of any of these of this vocal into any of these channels. Okay, happy? Hey!
Yes.
Yay! Okay, so what to start with? Oh, right. Ambient reverb. The most boring type of reverb. It's not an exciting thing in itself. This is not going to, give you lots of creative possibilities. But my God, does it help? I know at least a couple of you know about this plugin already, but some of you will not. And for those of you, I'm so happy for you right now, because this one is an absolute banger. This is a beauty. And it's completely free. I'm going to put the link in the chat right now. Boo, 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 boo. Actually quite well prepared. Ish. Where's it? Oh no, where's the chat? Oh no. Oh no, chat. There we go. There we go. All right. Okay. This is a link that you can follow to take you to a page where you can download this. You might have to make an account, but it's completely free. There's no like nonsense, and it's an emulation of kind of the absolute sort of bleeding edge industry standard hardware reverb that you see in high-end studios. It's smooth and natural enough to be in some mastering applications as well. This thing, it just sounds like a room. It's so natural and sweet and almost like you're not really listening to reverb. It's quite amazing. But one thing it does really well, you go in here and you have these sort of different types of reverbs. If you go into ambience, I'm still getting the hang of this reverb, to be quite honest. I've still not found my very favorites in here, but I know there's some good ones. It is a send effect, so I've got all my dry signal already going to the stereo output, so I don't want any dry signal coming through here. So I'm going to turn the mix all the way up. So the only thing that happens to stuff that goes through this channel is going to be reverb. Okay. If it wasn't all the way up, then I'd be getting some extra dry signal, and that's not what I'm here for. So here we go. I'm going to turn up this ambient reverb. This is not an exciting effect in itself, but let's just, you're all wearing headphones, so this should be quite pleasing to sort of compare. I've not even got much of it going through, okay? But this is my ambience, just a small ambience, the first one I came to, okay? This is without, and this is with. Okay, so are you hearing the subtle difference in that? You're all hearing this in stereo. This is not a massive effect. It's quite a subtle thing. I'm not using much of it. This is like it's like wasabi. A little bit is good. Too much of it is bad. It's a solid analogy. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, but suddenly, like this doesn't sound like it has an effect on it, right? But suddenly it is no longer a mono signal. It's no longer narrow, center focused. There is some width to it. There's some randomness on each side. There's some space around it. And it's warm, and it sort of leaps out the speakers a little bit more. This is a really simple one, but it's really, really effective just to stop your vocal sounding so cold and isolated, and just to help it. And frankly, a lot of the instruments that you might be using will be automatically stereo. You'll have synths that, like, the patch already has reverb and it already has chorus on it. You'll be using sampled pianos and strings and so on, which are stereo to the max, dude. So when you have your mono vocal in the center, it's like this is sounding really anemic compared to everything else, which is wide. Josh.
Yeah, just a quick one. I sometimes find when I do what you just did there to demonstrate, where you solo the send track and you want to just hear the wet signal, that it doesn't work. I just hear nothing coming through. I don't know if it's obviously not one to go down a rabbit hole now, but if there's a quick like, oh yeah, that's this setting.
I don't have it on the tip of my tongue. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, sorry about that, Josh.
Do you know what I mean? Have you had that before?
I do know what you mean. I do know what you mean. I think if you're sort of soloing things that, like, solo is a bit more complex with when you get to sends, because when you solo this, everything that's feeding that is going to be soloed. So you might hear. So there's some cases where you're going to hear not just the lead vocal, but everything else that's sending through to that track. The exact issue. Hey, maybe Danette put her hand up. Do you have the answer, or are we on something else?
I think you're saying about what I was going to say, which is that the difference is if you solo the send, everything else is cut out. But if you mute the lead vocal, it still exists. You just can't hear it. If that makes sense.
It sounds very philosophical. I am going to move on from this now, just because I sense this might be one for the manual. But if I'll have a think though.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, all right. So number one, ambient reverb. It's not as dull as it sounds. Number two, doubling effects. Doubling effects, they are essentially what a doubling effect will do is it'll take a copy of your sound, maybe even two copies of the sound, and it will put them a little bit out of sync with each other. So this is our lead, this is a little bit later, this is a little bit later still. And then you have just this, it's like a very, very short delay, basically. And if we listen to these three together now.
I get nervous if you find
I'll make it a bit more exaggerated.
yourself spilling over my head. It feels so.
So with this, in this instance, all three layers are the same volume as each other. So it's quite an eccentric effect. Maybe you might use the word robotic. It's quite similar to, well, actually, this is an effect that the Beatles would use a lot. If you listen to sort of early Beatles records. No, actually later Beatles records. I mean, this John Lennon's voice is just coated with this stuff. You can also put these two delayed ones out to the sides and create a very wide sound.
Nervous if you find yourself spilling over my head.
And obviously that's everything is at the same level as each other here, so we can also use it more subtly. So our lead vocal here and our left and right here. I'm going to blend in a little bit of these.
You find yourself spilling over my head.
It's just another way of sort of creating some width without it sort of sounding necessarily affected. Okay, so this is going to sort of create some stereo-ness to the track. So that's like literally what these effects do. There are some much neater solutions for this on bus 2. I'm going to show you a plugin that I found today, which does this very well. Where the hell is it? Yeah, there we go. So Solider Sound S doubler. It's a goodie, nice and simple, completely free. I'm going to turn off the dry signal, so the only thing that's happening here is a doubling effect, and I'll show you what this sounds like. So. We're going to spread it out so it's just panned all the way out to the sides. We can have it centrally.
Find yourself spilling over
I'm going to have it as a relatively long delay or a relatively short delay.
my head.
So it's sort of replicating what it sounds like to have double tracked or triple tracked your vocal and then pan them out to one side, or just lay them underneath your original vocal. And that's a really common technique for sort of creating some thickness and some texture to the sound. It can be quite forgiving for vocals that maybe aren't sort of perfectly tuned. It sort of creates a kind of interesting chorusing effect when they interact like that. So it kind of makes it a good thing when you have these funny pitch fluctuations. That's kind of cool. So this is another simple effect that you can use for a certain flavor of sort of width and quality, and just to make your vocal sound less raw. Okay. There is. Oh, I've got to give you two. That was here. There we go. Stop share. Here's the chat. There we go. I'm also giving you the Valhalla space modulator here. Which is capable of similar things, but also really insane things, and it's completely free. So have some fun with that. The S doubler though is just a straightforward doubling effect, and I think it does that a little bit better than the Valhalla does by itself. Okay, right. So we've looked at ambient reverb, we've looked at doubling effects. I'm going to go back to reverb again. Okay, I'm going to go back to this Magic 7 plugin because it really is an absolute charmer, and I'm going to call this a room reverb now. So a lot of the time when we hear reverb effects, they're very identifiable, you know, or like people you know who aren't musicians will be able to identify reverb because they'll hear this big sort of ghostly like sort of echoey sound. But room reverbs, they're not so like identifiable. Again, they might not be that obvious that they're there, but sort of just moving up in the reverb length stakes, we end up with room reverbs, and these they're really important. They can do so much to make your vocal sound natural. A lot of the time when we record a vocal, we're doing everything we can to reduce the effect of the room that we're in. We surround ourselves with acoustic panels, like I have in the corner of my room over here. We sing close to the mic, so proportionally there's a lot more of the sound of the mic than the reflections in the room. And that's really useful because it means that we have a lot of flexibility with the recording that we have because it's very clean. But No one hears a voice like that. That's not what voices sound like when we talk to each other. Okay, so having a bit of room reverb will add some life to the track. It doesn't even need to sound very much like there's an effect on it. I'm just trying to operate my computer at this point. I know I can do this well sometimes. There we go. All right. Okay, so back on the Magic 7. It's a doozy, this one. And I'm just going to go for some larger rooms. So here. There we go. It's a 1.2 second reverb. It sounds very, very natural.
I get nervous if you find yourself spilling over my head. My head. It feels so.
And again, this is one that like people will not really know is there, but it is adding this quality, this width, this sort of expensiveness to the sound. Okay, it's just I'm mentioning it because it's really easy to overlook this stuff. It's very easy to ignore room reverbs. Okay, right. Oh, got questions. Rock.
Can these room reverbs be used on a drum bus if you weren't able to record room mics?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they can. So if we're going to talk about the absolute equivalent scenario, when you're recording a drum kit with mics on every part of the kit and maybe a couple of overheads, those mics that are right next to the snare drum, right next to the kick drum, right next to the tom and the hi-hat, like they're picking up. It gives us loads of control over the sound. But nobody hears a snare drum like that if they want to be able to live a long life of hearing snare drums. So in particular, to use some room reverb on the close mics will really help to bring those into a more natural kind of sound. You might want to choose one that is kind of similar in length and quality to the kind of room it was recorded in, to really gel it together with what the overheads are picking up. But yeah, adding some room reverb to just to the close mics, generally speaking. You wouldn't normally, I wouldn't normally put them on overheads and so on, but it helps to helps those otherwise quite naked sounds to just sound a bit more lively.
Thank you. Sorry for going off topic.
That's not off topic at all, man. That's a great little, like, we just swerved into a lovely little analog there. Josh.
Sorry, yeah, just very quickly, can you remind you put two reverbs on there? One was like pretty short, and the other was sort of more room one. What they serving? They sort of complementing each other, or were you sort of showing two different types that you'd use not together, or yeah, sort of. I guess I haven't sort of seen or used myself where you would put two different reverbs on the same signal.
Yeah, it's there are lots of good reasons to use more than one reverb on the same signal. If you like the ambience, yes, it's a short reverb. It's like sort of half a second long before it's completely gone. So really, it feels much shorter than that even. And that's just to sort of create some width to the sound. It has a different kind of purpose and effect to the room reverb. The room reverb is going to give you more space, and it's a more natural sound. So like. The ambient reverb you can use if you actually want a dry sound, but you want it to be a bit more expensive and a bit wider and a bit warmer and less cold. Okay, and that can be good on anything where you've got a really exposed vocal that you just want to have a bit more width and realness to. The room is going to give it an even more natural sound of being in an acoustic space. And that's going to suit it to songs which have that elsewhere. It's going to feel more sort of together with those other elements. So, and it can be it can be a very good shout in some cases to use the same kind of reverb for your instruments and your voice, because then they feel like they're all in the same space. Okay, there are reasons to do that, and there are reasons not to do that if you want to have more separation and weirdness. But yeah, that's creative decisions. So yeah, you can use them together. They have different kind of purposes. Yeah. All right.
Thanks.
Yeah, and the Magic 7 is a beauty. Really, it's a gift. I mean, even when I open this out into sort of some larger sounds, I don't know what this is, but I'll share it anyway. Ba, 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 ba. Oh, gosh. This is a 1.5 second reverb now. Again, no one would really sort of hear that and say this is a reverby vocal sound, but it sounds warm, it sounds natural, it sounds inviting. Just don't ignore it. If you're adding lots of effects into these things, you can create a lot of mud as well. If you have a lot of wide effects that have all the frequencies you've got in all your other instruments, it can smudge things out. So another really vital thing to be aware of being able to do is to EQ your effects. So I'll very often be rolling off the low frequencies in my reverbs, just so it stays the hell away from the muddy stuff. So all my low frequencies are nice and clean, but it gives that sense of space and air. It sort of invites you to use more of it. It gives you a cleaner kind of mixed sound. Yeah, so if you're finding that adding effects is creating mud, then let's roll off that low end, and you'll get a lot more space and clarity. Okay, I've got another 5 minutes to show you a couple of other fun things. So I'm just going to do these things, folks. I'm just going to stick some more things on the menu because I'm sort of out of time to do things with a lot of thoroughness. Okay, so it's going to be right. It's going to be delay. There are lots of free delay plugins. I'm just going to use the Logic stock for this because I don't have everything ready for you right now. But I'm going to do it very, very simply. I think I showed a little bit of this last time around, but you know, a lot of the time when people are hearing what they think is reverb, it is delay creating some warmth in the background. The problem that you can have with delays is that they can end up sort of interfering with the clarity of the voice itself. Because they sound too similar. This is the same thing, just later. So it can get quite confusing like that. So the trick here for me is to use filters and modulation effects to sort of create more differences between the vocal and the effect sound. So there we go. So that could be quite confusing. It's fun, but we're not going into special effects here. This is something that you'll hear a lot on records, and this is just taking a simple delay, making it sound soft, taking off the top end. Spilling over my head. And then very often widening it using whatever you like, really. Just any sort of choruses are good for this. You could use a short ambient reverb or whatever you like, just to give the delayed effect some absolute width and randomness on the sides. My head, it feels so. And like this, you can sort of use quite a lot of this effect without it sort of interfering with the clarity of the lead. So.
Shouldn't you put the output also on 100% wet? Sorry, isn't that a thing that you mix in the?
Yeah. Well, the crucial thing is there's no dry.
Ah, okay, I see, I see.
That's it,
Okay.
yeah. So some of these have a separate dry and wet control. Some of them have a percentage between dry and wet. So just you got to watch out for that. But effectively, we've got a small amount of 100% wet, if that makes sense. Okay. So this effect, like the delay effects, I love them. And you can sort of create these repeated sounds, these darker sounds that sound separate to your lead vocal. Using it in tempo sounds great in lots of circumstances.
Nervous if you find yourself spilling over my head.
But even very short delay times can work very well for you to like this sort of slap effect.
My head, it feels so.
It's another way of adding some subtle width and warmth without it sort of becoming like its own kind of whole world of effect. Okay, so delays with filtering and chorus. Hooray! Yay! Yeah, there we go. Just making sure that you're all alive out there. All right. Okay. I know we're very much out of time, so there's two more things I'm going to quickly throw in here. Saturation. Yeah. Distortion. Let's do it. Okay. This is a nice free one. Softtube. They make great plugins. They do, and they do a free one called the Saturation Knob. With the Saturation Knob. This is just like any old distortion. It just gives a very nice sort of gritty distortion, a really nice quality to it. Now with this one, I'm not going to get more of the effect necessary by changing the send over here. I want to send lots to this all the time, so I have the same amount of saturation here. If I just put a little bit through here, it will not be distorting. We won't be sending enough signal over here to make this distort. We want loads of signal going into this thing, lots of saturation over here, and it will sound like this.
I'm feeling so refreshed. I'm feeling so refreshed.
So notice I've got this sort of send effect, not going over the vocal itself, and this means that now I can blend in a little bit of this thing.
I'm feeling so refreshed. I'm feeling so refreshed. I get nervous if you find yourself spilling over my head. My head, it feels so.
Now, like most people will not hear this sound and think that's a distorted vocal. The clean sound is still dominating the sound. That's still like giving us all the sort of clarity and class and expensiveness of the sound. But blending in a little bit of that saturated sound just gives it a bit of an edge. I'll just let you hear the contrast again.
I'm feeling so refreshed. I'm feeling so refreshed. I get nervous if you find yourself spilling over my head. My head, it feels so. I'm feeling so refreshed. I'm feeling so refreshed. I get nervous if you find yourself spilling over my head. My head, it feels so.
Okay, so that's with everything I've done there added together. It's a big difference, right? It's a huge difference between that raw sound and with these effects, which are not really shouting about themselves, but they're creating this width and thickness and quality. And they are on every record. They're there. Like, not all of them, maybe one of them, maybe all of them. Definitely these and other ones as well. Yeah. But they can have a huge impact on how well your vocal sits and how well it sort of blends with the rest of your track. As ever, I would love to tell you more and more, and I do intend to do that in the future over there. So, oh, hang on a second, just real quick. I'll just give you that saturation plugin. Here we go. Saturation. The last effect, saturation. I've put that in the chat there. Okay. All right. It's good, isn't it? Okay. All right. Okay. So we're kind of at the end of our time. I don't want to go over at all, really. But a couple of things that I want to do just before we quickly finish. I'm really excited that you're here, and that particularly that you're interested in sort of becoming a bit of a community like this with the WhatsApp. So I'll send a follow-up email with the video as ever, and give you some instructions on how you can join that. I'm just dropping my Ko-fi in the chat here. If you think this is going to be valuable to you, the stuff that we've looked at today, then I'm very, very grateful for the people who have donated. It does help to make this happen. I put quite a lot of preparation and thought into these things, and I really want to make these great for you, and I really want to build something fantastic with you guys. So yeah, so if you've got value from it and you have a few quid to spare, I would be very grateful for a small donation, but don't feel obliged. The most important thing is that you're here. The other really important thing would be if you know other people who would benefit from this, please bring them in. They will thank you for it, okay? You will be really cool if you bring other people into this who you can help and into this community, because it's going to grow. We're going to get better at this. You're going to be helping each other in all kinds of fun ways. And I'd also really like to sort of see how else I can help you directly. If there's someone who I'm doing some mixing tutorials with at the moment, just like once a week, I meet up with him to look at one of his mixes and we talk it through. If that could be useful for you to sort of go through something like that, I'm very much available for that. Also, just if you're sort of on a journey to become, well, make this a career for yourselves, or you're sort of at a point where you want to sort of develop it, I'd be really interested to sort of talk to you and just see how I can help about whatever that thing might be. Probably, I know a lot of people who might be able to help you with all kinds of things. There's certain things that I could help you with directly, but there's other people I can bring you on to. So, you know, like, it's always good to catch up with you as well. So please, if you'd like to just meet up for a half-hour video chat sometime, I'd really be delighted, sincerely. So just drop me an email for that if you'd like that. Yeah. Hello, Rourke.
Hello. Could I put forward a recommendation on something that we could go through in the future?
Yes, please.
Mid-side processing.
Okay.
I know it's a little bit more of an advanced thing.
Yeah.
In some aspects, but
it's awesome. I'd love to do that. I'm thinking there's been some talk of doing a session on like stereo techniques in general, so that might fall into that. Yeah. I know we're past 9 o'clock. If you need to go, then please don't stand on ceremony. But I do want to ask if there's anything that you would particularly love to have a session on, because this is for you. I'd like to sort of share what I know about all this nonsense to help you. It helps me do that if I know what you need help with. If you know it now, that's great. If it comes to you in 10 minutes time, drop me an email. Phoenix?
Yeah, what I said last week already is drum treatment, drum mixing, and low end is also something that I think is something that sometimes it's just really messy to deal with, and it would be really interesting to see how you go about it.
Fantastic. Well, we did one on low end a few weeks ago, so I'll send you that video.
Ah, that already happened. Okay, that would be great. Amazing.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. And also any feedback on how I could do this better. Perhaps maybe not going over time like this would be a good start, huh? Anyway, okay. Thank you so much for coming along. And oh, just to confirm, in 2 weeks' time, you'd be happy to have a vocal session where we go into some wackier stuff and maybe backing vocals and that sort of thing. Yeah. Okay. Sweet. Okay. All right. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. And see if you can think of anyone else who'd enjoy this. I'd love to meet them. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a lovely
Thanks,
Thank
Nick.
you, Nick.
Cheers, Nick.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Nice one.
Take care.
Thanks, Nick.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you.